So it's my pleasure to announce the next speaker. Her name is Marika Lynch, and Marika hails from Miami, a born-bred, true native Floridian, where early in her career, she spent several years with the Miami Herald, and she shared in 2 Pulitzer Prizes. She started her own communications firm in 2008, and since that time has developed outreach campaigns and has engaged in a variety of audiences, including Miami and Detroit artists, community foundations across the country, and a growing network of Black men. She currently leads communications for the Knight Foundation's arts program, one of the largest in the United States. We are fortunate to have her here with us this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome to the stage Marika Lynch.
I thought since we're going to be together for an hour, we'd get to know each other a little better. So I thought we'd start with a poll. So if you all could raise your hands, and clappers are fine, I'm not afraid of the psychads. If you could raise your hand if you regularly use Facebook. There we go. Most of the audience, that's not surprising. How about Twitter? Who regularly uses Twitter? Let's see. Okay, a little bit of a smaller audience. Me too, I'm on Twitter also. My hand up there? Yeah, there I am. Okay, how about Instagram? Visual people out there? We got a great crowd of social media people. Now, I would love to hear, and raise your hand, if you have used social media in the past 6 months to promote the cause you work for or really care about. I'm here to talk today about how you can use your own social media profiles, whether you're a volunteer, an executive director, a board member, how you can develop your own social media profiles to help the cause that you care about, separate from your own organization's page. Now, I want to know if anybody recognizes this picture. It was taken here in Palm Beach. What is it? It was a musical swings. This is one of my favorite projects. This is actually a public art project, and it's traveling right now around the United States. And so if one person gets on a swing, it makes some really nice noise, right? It makes a musical instrument. But if a lot of people get on the swings together, it plays a symphony. And I think this is a fantastic metaphor for communications. Because if you have an organization, and let's say you have a communications consultant or a communications director, and they're one person making some noise for you, there'll be some nice noise. But if everybody in your organization, from your volunteers to your board members, are out there working together on the same song, the impact is going to be that much greater. It's going to be like a symphony. So think about that as you go around in your planning. I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk a little bit about why it's so important for you to build up your social media brand. We're going to talk about how you might get started in doing that. Some content ideas for you, because sometimes people get nervous looking at a blank screen. Talk about your board members. And then finally, at the end, we're going to end with some tools and tricks. That's also the fun part. And I'm going to want to hear from you, too, about what kind of tools and tricks that you have. About halfway through, we're going to stop for questions, so don't worry about saving them up to the end. And then also at the end, I'll show you a link that you can copy down with all the resources that I'm talking about, so you don't have to madly scribble. You can download that cheat sheet and take it with you on your phone. Great. So I think Troy covered a lot of this, but I want to talk a little bit about who I am and my company. 8 years ago, I started my own communications company because I really felt like I wanted to help nonprofits and foundations tell their story. I do digital outreach, strategic planning with a focus on training. And I want to really introduce you today to somebody I have a lot of respect for and who I think is one of the most sought after board members in Miami. His name is Marlon Hill. He's an attorney and an activist, and he's on a lot of people's boards. Some people in the audience here know him. Yeah, he's great, right? Marlon's wonderful. Now, why is Marlon so sought after? It's not just because he's a great guy, and he is. And it's not just because he does what people want people to do on a board, because he does. It's because he is a fantastic communicator. He is always out there communicating about the causes he cares about. Whether it's dressing up in Caribbean carnival costumes for the annual breast cancer walk, or launching a new nonprofit in downtown Miami, or he's on the board of the book fair, so he's spreading word about who's going to speak. And then he'll post a picture, too, with an author or two at the book fair to spread the word again. Now, he's very creative, and one of the favorite things for me that he does is every day in Miami we have a Give Miami Day. I think in Palm Beach you had one here in May. It's a 24-hour give-a-thon. And so what Marlon does for that event is he creates a Made in Miami playlist, a playlist of only Miami songs. We're talking Gloria Estefan, we're talking Pitbull. So that while you're counting your donations during the day or thinking about who you want to donate to, you got great music to do it to. He spreads it on social media and gets it out there. And so I asked Marlon, I said, Marlon, why do you do this? Why do you take so much time to get the word out about the causes you care about? And he said, because if you don't write your own story, somebody else will, okay? And that's the truth. And they may not tell it in the way you want them to tell it to. It's very good, very basic communications advice, but something to always keep in mind about your organization. Because God forbid a crisis might come, and you might have to defend your organization in that crisis. If you don't have an established brand voice, either institutionally or your own, it's going to be really hard for people to take you seriously and to give credit for what you do, okay? So remember that. Always, if you don't write your story, somebody else will. Now, as we all know, because we live in this world, communication has changed greatly in the last 9 years. This is the old model, right? If you wanted to launch a campaign or a new something, you could hold a press conference, you would write an op-ed, and you could pretty much expect that people would be talking about the next day. It was very one way. I talk, you listen, right? Well, communications these days, much different. It's really a networked model. It's people to people. People aren't necessarily going to the front page of the New York Times or even the home page of the New York Times to get what they need to read. They're getting it from people to people, telling each other, sharing stories. And in the nonprofit context, this means that your supporters are often your greatest advocates, and you need to use them to help spread your word. Now, we all know, too, that people are increasingly living online. And I mean, this is sort of a given. But in the beginning of the summer, Facebook came out with a statistic that really blew my mind. And that's that between Facebook and Instagram, their users spend 50 minutes a day on those two platforms. I mean, think about what you do 50 minutes a day. I don't exercise 50 minutes a day. I wish I did. I think I exercise maybe 35 minutes a day. I don't eat dinner with my kids for 50 minutes a day. They get antsy after like 25. So 50 minutes a day is an extraordinary amount of time. And for you executive directors out there too, leaders are increasingly using social media. They know that it's something that they have to do. Weber Shandvik actually has been looking at this since, I think about 2012. And their most recent survey found that in corporate leadership, 80% of corporate leaders were using social media. Not only that, brand fog media, this one really blew my mind. Brand fog media found in people that they surveyed, 80% thought that people who use social media were more equipped to lead. To lead. So that's the perception that's out there. So we know that more people are online. We know that's where people can engage them. We know leaders are doing it. But one of the biggest problems nonprofits have, and tell me if this is true, is the sense that your cause only communicates with you if you want something from them, right? I want you to come to my event. I want you to donate. Well, social media is the ultimate relationship builder. And that's why it's important to do it year-round, all the time, to have a relationship with the people you need to, so that they're there for you when you need them to be. Now, one of the biggest questions I get is, well, why do I have to do this on my own channels? I have this brand page, the United Way of Palm Beach County, the Junior League. We have our branded page. Why do I, as an individual, have to also engage? And there's some really good reasons. One, people like to follow people, not logos, okay? So if you actually look at the list of the followers of a leader and their organization, there's not that much crossover. The other thing is your voice. An institutional voice is very different from your own personal voice. On your personal page, you should be talking like you talk, like I'm talking to you now. The institution should have its own voice. So those are two very different ways to communicate and to develop. So that's also why you need to have your own brand page. Sorry, your own page. So let's take a pulse check. Let's take a little minute here. I know that the gears are working. Whenever we talk about this, people start to think about all the reasons why they might not want to engage fully on social media. So let's get it out there. Let's talk about them. Who's having, what are some of the issues you think about why you don't want to engage fully on social media? Does anybody have one?
Anybody who decides to lead anything is going to put themselves in the public eye. And so what you would need to do is just make sure that you put in the security things in place and make sure that there's certain things that aren't publicly accessible, but be okay with the fact that might happen. I mean, it's happened with our organization. We had, like I said, I work with teens. We started to get all sorts of crazy, lascivious stuff coming in our direction. And we had a policy in place so that it happened. We knew how to deal with it, and our organization got stronger, and they wrapped around us quickly. So you just, you understand that if you're a leader, that's what's going to happen, but just put things in place and then move forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for example, I've actually been hacked on Facebook too, and I immediately put in a two-step verification purpose. So people just don't need my password to get in. I have to be texted a number to put in so that there's two-step verification. Anybody else have a barrier they like to get over, or a barrier that stopped them from doing this?
The potential for engaging in conflict.
Mm-hmm. And wait, keep the mic. What do you think the answer to that is?
Don't say anything online you wouldn't say to somebody's face while they're sitting there in front of you. Be respectful.
That's right. Don't say anything online. Don't share anything online that you don't want reposted. Don't share anything online that you wouldn't say to somebody's face. Maybe not a good idea to be tweeting at 3 in the morning. We know some people who do that, right? Yes, there are a lot of ways to overcome these barriers. I think there's one in the back, too.
Hi. I was always kind of hesitant that my crazy friends and family are going to tag me in really embarrassing posts that I might not personally agree with. So I just changed the setting where I have to approve whether or not, I'm affiliated with a post. So.
Yes, that's a good way to stop that too. I certainly have that on Facebook. On Twitter, a lot of people just have it that automatically people can't tag them. I find those people really annoying because I like to tag people all the time. But I understand why people don't want to be tagged. I think we have one more over here where the microphone is. Sorry, it's hard to see.
Hi.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, if I could admit, it's overwhelming. There's a lot of different channels. There's a lot of ways we can communicate with them. There's a lot of different messages. It seems like a second job when I have my business I'm running as well. So it just, and then keeping up with the Joneses, you see a lot of different people doing it very well. So then you get frustrated, like, man, I want to do it like them. So those are things that just kind of hold me back.
Yes, and that is a perfect segue into the rest of the presentation. Because what I hope to do today is give you the tricks and the tools to be able to manage it a little bit better, or at least get your start. Okay? I hear you. There are lots of people like that. It's very, very true. Okay, so we're going to talk about how to get started. Now, these tips are for anybody, whether you're joining Twitter or Facebook today, or whether you've been on for 5 years and you just need a little bit of a tune-up. So let's talk a little bit about getting started. One of the first things that people ask me is, how do I separate my personal and my work life on social media? Great question. And the answer is personal. You have to decide it for yourself. There's no one pat answer for the best way to do that. I'll tell you a little story about me. I used to say that nobody on Facebook knew that I had a job, and nobody on Twitter knew that I had 3 kids. So that's how I separated them. Twitter was for my business and for my professional life and learning about communications, and Facebook was for joking around and family vacation pics and maybe even what I had for dinner, although I don't do that much. So that's how I separated it. But I also found that on Twitter, the more that I posted about myself, the more that people saw me in 360, they saw me as a whole person. And the more people engaged with me, and the more followers I got. So that's what was working for me. But these are the lines that you have to draw for yourself and have to think about before you engage. Okay? Another thing is to set your goals. We are a strategic people. we are in the nonprofit world because we saw a problem and we wanted to solve it. We wanted to help people who are who suffered during Hurricane Matthew, so we want to go out and help them. It's the same thing with social media. You need to think about what your goals are. And the last thing people ask themselves should be the first thing. And that's, why am I here? What am I doing here? Are you trying to connect with journalists? Are you trying to connect with your funders? What about your small-time donors? Are you trying to influence the conversation about the cause that you care about? Those are all things you can do on social media. And once you set your goal, that's what's really going to inform everything else that you do, whether it's the platform you pick or the content you post. But don't forget to do that. That's step one, okay? Setting your goal. The next thing you want to do is pick your platform. And for the purpose of this talk, I'm only going to talk about these 4 mainstream ones. And that's because I really believe that you have to master the mainstream before you go out and dabble in something that's a little bit not as mainstream. I mean, you may be out there rocking Snapchat, you may be great at Tumblr, YouTube, whatever it is, but for the purposes of this talk, we're going to stick with these. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about each. Facebook these days, it's a little bit like the Yellow Pages. Everybody's on it. We know that fewer young people are engaging on it and are interested in it, but still, Facebook owns the market on social shares. Something like 80 to 90% of all content shared on social media is shared on Facebook. Now, who's heard of the Facebook algorithm? Oh, a decent number of people. So in your Facebook feed, it's no longer chronologically what people post that shows up in your feed. It's a computer code, and Facebook tweaks it every once in a while. And most recently, what they've done is they've made it very hard for brands, which include nonprofits, to get into people's social feeds. So that means if you're a nonprofit, anytime you post, between 3 and 10% of your followers will be getting that post. Do you know how many that is? Not very many, depending on the size of your following. But if you're a small nonprofit, that's not very many people. However, if you're a volunteer, an executive director, a board member, and you're posting about the cause you care about, it's much more likely to get into other people's feeds because you're considered friends and family. You're not talking from the brand page, you're talking from yourself. So your impact is going to be even wider. Okay? Now Twitter, we all know it's 140 characters. We all know what Twitter is, but I'll tell you a little bit more about actually how it could work for you. Twitter is a much smaller audience, but it's a much more engaged audience. People who are on Twitter love Twitter. It's fantastic for breaking news, whether it's sports or the election. It ruled election day. That's where all the conversation was happening, okay? So some of the advantages are you can connect with and discover influencers really easily. The disadvantages, smaller audience, there's a fire hose of information out there. They're also having some financial problems, so their future, a little uncertain. Next is Instagram. Obviously, a very visual platform. If you know how to tell stories visually or in micro video, this might be the platform for you. It's great. And engagement is really high. The problem with it, though, is that it's really hard to share an it's really hard to share a gram unless you get a separate app to share. And it's really hard to drive people back to your website. If you're posting something about an event or you want people to read something on your website, it's really hard to do that. You can put a link in your bio and ask people to do it, but it's not that common. People who are on Instagram stay on Instagram. And then the last platform we'll just talk about briefly is LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the professionals network. It's for posting about your industry. I think one of the best things that LinkedIn has from the nonprofit sense is LinkedIn groups. People there have clustered around certain causes that they care about, and it's a place to exchange ideas and information if you can find the right group, there. Okay? Now, picking your platform. If there's one thing I want to tell you about picking your own platform, you really have to find a platform that's right for you. This is my good friend and a man I used to work for, Dennis Scholl. He was the vice president of arts at Knight Foundation. And people tell Dennis all the time, Dennis, you got to tweet. Dennis, you got to tweet. And he would send a tweet out there into the world, and then 6 months later, he'd send another one. And I think, as we all know, you can't just tweet every 6 months, right? You're not going to get anywhere. He just didn't like the 140 characters. It wasn't for him. He had a hard time filling the space. But he loved taking pictures. So he got on Instagram. And let me tell you, this guy, within 6 months, had 1,000 followers. And within a year, was named one of the top art collectors in the United States on Instagram, because he also is an art collector. And so I asked Dennis, I said, what are some of the top tips that you have for people who want to start out on social media? And he said the first thing he does is curate. Dennis is the world's biggest foodie, but he never posts about food. He only posts about the visual arts and about filmmaking. And so he built up his community on Instagram around those two things. The other thing is to be of the moment. If something is happening right now, you have to take advantage of it and you have to post about it. Go back to this slide. This is a slide of Dennis actually sneaking into an exhibit in London 3 days before it opened, okay? People ate it up, they loved it. You know, people in the art world think that's the best thing ever. So, I mean, he really hit the moment at the right time. And the last thing is another question that you need to ask yourself. What do you know that nobody else knows? What's your superpower? What's that one thing that you can talk about where you can really own the market? That's true whether you're on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook. It's a really good thing to ask yourself, okay? So be like Dennis and pick your platform well. So I want to talk to you also about a book that I read recently to recommend it. It's Charlene Lee's The Engaged Leader. And I put a link to it in the resources that you can download later. But Charlene really has, it's called, The Engaged Leader, A Strategy for Your Digital Transformation. And it's really aimed at CEOs and executive directors and a guidebook on how to engage on social media. But she lays out a 3-step process if you're gonna get on social media and do it right, you need to start by listening, then sharing, and then engaging. I mean, a lot of people liken social media to a cocktail party, right? It's the social and social media. So you don't walk into a cocktail party and sort of command the conversation, unless you want to be rude. It's okay. But if you want to do it the right way, you go in, you listen, you see who's there, you see what they're talking about, and then you see what you can add, right? It's the same way with social media. So you want to listen first before you go any further. We're going to get to the last two later. I want to give you a pro tip here on Twitter. Twitter actually makes eavesdropping, and this is the listening part. Twitter makes eavesdropping incredibly easy, incredibly easy. This is the advanced Twitter search tool. And what you can do is run a search on a topic and a geographic area, okay? So who are my folks here from the Women's Foundation of Palm Beach? Yay, there they are in the back, thank you. Glad to see you guys here. I looked up your profile and saw that domestic violence was an issue that you all care about. So I decided to do a search on domestic violence in Palm Beach County to see what came up, to see if we could hear what people are saying about domestic violence here locally. And of course, I found their event. Kudos to you for using social media for spreading the word about it. And I know this slide is hard to read, so I'll tell you a little bit about what it says. The woman on the top right-hand corner has just come out with a podcast on her experience as a domestic violence survivor. If you don't know her, maybe this woman could be a partner in your next event. Maybe she could be a speaker. But she's somebody else that's talking about your topic that you're going to want to engage with. Okay? Up in this left-hand corner or right-hand corner over here, unfortunately, an arrest in a domestic violence case in the Palm Beach Post. Now, maybe it's time to reach out to that reporter and say, hey, we have this list of resources about domestic violence, or our executive director can talk about domestic violence and the resources we have in the next story that you do. So remember us, okay? You can reach out to journalists, maybe a partner. And then the other two are other events, I think, around Domestic Violence Month, a fundraiser, and then also lighting the Jupiter Lighthouse. But again, this shows how you can listen on social media to see who else out there cares about what you care about. Now we're going to take a break for some questions. We're about halfway through, so do we have any questions so far?
Not a question, but going back to what you said on Facebook in terms of what percentage and how it's going out there and it filters and you're not going to get the reach. I found that out. And what's great when you have a Facebook page with your organization is they'll show you at the bottom how many people it's reaching. So what I've done is, once I post something for the organization, I will repost or share it on my personal page, and then my friend starts, and then I get the word out, and you're getting more of contact or people to see what you're doing.
Thank you. That is a wonderful tip. I actually put it in later in the presentation, but that is absolutely wonderful and true. Don't leave your brand pages out there hanging. Share your stuff from your brand page because it's going to get a much wider reach, and try to break that algorithm problem that we have. Yes.
Hi, so what is your opinion on Facebook Live? How can you leverage that amazing resource that is just so new for Facebook?
Yeah, so thank you. I also have this a little bit later, but I'll just talk about it now. Facebook, okay. So Facebook Live is a live video platform using Facebook. You may have seen it. It is less than a year old. I think for me, it got its big debut at the beginning of the summer when the Democrats wanted to do a filibuster in Congress and the Republicans shut down C-SPAN. And so what the Democrats did was broadcast the happenings on their live via Facebook Live and Periscope on their Facebook and Twitter pages. So you can think about the consequences there for advocacy and what you can do if you have an advocacy group and something like that happens. There are a lot of other ways that we're in an experimental phase, right? People are sorting out the best ways to use it. One of the good things about Facebook Live now is that Facebook is actually preferring it in the algorithm. So if you do a Facebook Live video, it'll naturally reach, they'll put it higher up in people's feeds, so it will reach more people. It's one way to reach more people. But nonprofits are using it in a lot of different ways. A slide that I'll have later shows the New York Public Library that really wanted to highlight its early literacy programs. So it broadcasts live its story time on the front of the New York Public Library steps. I know Mary does a Difference Maker chat on Facebook Live also, and does it really well too. Foundations also are doing it. Melinda Gates from Gates Foundation has done live Q&As with her grantees. So I think the point is to be creative about it and see how you can use it the best for what you need to do.
Awesome, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a real quick follow-up question to that. I get asked on our business Facebook page almost daily, do you want to boost your post? Is that a new profit center for Facebook, and what does that mean?
Yes, that's how Facebook is making money.
What
And
are
that's
they
why
doing to boost it?
I'm sorry?
If I were to say yes, what are they doing? Sometimes they want $5. What are they going to do?
Yeah, they're gonna place your post in people's feeds that you designate, depending on how much money that you give them. If you give them $5, it's this amount. If you give them $50, it's this amount. It's a way of
Where do they place it?
advertising.
Where do they put it?
They put it in people's feeds so that it shows up in people's social media feeds, Facebook feed.
Thank you.
Generally, what I'm doing is I'm posting an Instagram picture and then tagging Twitter and Facebook through it. Is that the right way to do it or not? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, each platform is very different. And while it's sometimes okay to post the same picture on different platforms, you should customize the text on different platforms. I know it's not a time saver. Yes,
right.
what were you gonna
The
say?
only problem that I have is we're an animal rescue and animal hospital organization, so we have a lot of information to give out, which is where the Twitter comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have the visual part where people like to see the cute, puppies and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's why I'm linking the two of them together. And then to that lady's point over there, yeah, Facebook could be your best enemy, your best friend and your worst enemy. That's something we have established from the get-go kind of thing.
Yep, that's absolutely true. The best practice is to post different content on each platform according to the platform. You can promote your Instagram channel on Twitter and vice versa, but it's better to customize your content to each platform.
And if, just as I said before, I have multiple pages, is there one app out there that I can link all the pages and throw it out to the different?
Yeah, Hootsuite lets you do that.
I'm sorry?
Hootsuite,
Okay. Is it a free app or?
I think it's free, yeah. The
Is
last time I downloaded it. HOOTSUITE. I'm sorry, does anybody else have a good app that they like to use? You got to shout it, though. Buffer, great. Anybody else? Pages.
Great,
Okay.
thank you.
Great. I love how we help each other. That's what this is about. Thank you. Marley.
Hello, good morning. So my mission is to inspire people to perform acts of random kindness, and it is my mission as a human being, and it's also my mission with my nonprofit. So there's no line of separation between, my organization space. As a matter of fact, I'm a lot more active just on my personal social media than anything else. But my question, as it relates to being of the moment, we just had a big event, sponsored by the Office Depot Foundation, called the 5K Park Fish. Shout out to all the nonprofits in the room who participated. Give me the clappers. Okay, cool. And in our debrief and in thinking about it, one of the things that came up is in our marketing efforts, and I mean, we had a wonderful turnout, but in thinking how could this be, bigger and aligned with our vision of, the whole world performing acts of random kindness, which is what we desperately need. I feel that we weren't of the moment. Especially this year, the last thing on the conversation seemed to be kindness. Even though everybody in this room, that's what we live and do every day, but that's not what the of the moment relevant conversations were at all, let alone the few months leading up to our event. So I would just love your insight on that specific point of how can you be of the moment when what's of the moment is so vastly the opposite of what your message is, what your mission is, which is to inspire people to be kind and of service to one another. So my way has been living the cause and showing pictures, and I document. I mean, that's all that you will ever see on my social media. But I just wonder, my engagement isn't that high. Our Office Depot chat had like 6,000 views, which was amazing. And I just wonder your feedback on that of the moment, when your mission is so different than what's going on of the moment. How do you tie that in?
You mean what's going on in the moment in the world?
Yeah.
That people aren't being kind to each other.
Yeah.
I think you can use that to your advantage.
Yeah.
Think about how you can communicate take that moment where people are really sort of fed up with what's going on and get your message out there even more to spread the kindness. I think in this last week, people have really been looking for those kindness messages. I know I've been trying to share them. So that's a good example of how you try to take advantage of the moment for it.
And so have we, but really in just sharing and focus on the kindness, how do you actually tie in the, kind of like
your park day?
Yeah.
Sometimes you can't. I'm not gonna lie.
No?
Sometimes you can. I don't have a great answer for you. I'm not gonna say you needed to have done this. But what I can say is sometimes it's not about promoting your event. Sometimes it's getting out there to get your message out there, and then people will remember who you are for later, so that when your park day comes again, they'll remember Marley and the park day.
Well, thank you.
Hi, I work in the communications department for the Multiple Sclerosis Foundation, and a lot of my coworkers will share on Facebook what I post to the page, but it's hard to get them to share from LinkedIn or Twitter. It just doesn't come naturally to them. How can I mobilize them?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you need to make you're talking about people in your communications department?
Just people in our organization as a whole.
Have you tried a training?
We did, what I do is I'll send an email with step-by-step, very simple instructions, but we haven't had a workshop.
Okay. Yeah, I think there are a couple of things. One, I really believe, and you have to ask people. I'm not saying that you don't, I'm just saying for everybody. If you want people to share the content from your company or your organization, asking them goes a long way because they're not necessarily going to think about it. Number two, holding a training workshop, even though they know Twitter and LinkedIn, hold a training. And then I think one of the best ways is to do incentives. It doesn't have to be an award, but it can be, social media employee of the month or of the quarter. It's announced in a very public way. Give them a certificate, whatever you want to do. But those type of incentives, I think, go a long way.
I'd like you to talk about the effectiveness of Facebook ads and whether they are really worthwhile for nonprofits. It's understandable when a company is trying to sell a product and they can market it to a specific potential buyer. But our universe that we're communicating is of people who are wanting to do good deeds. And I'll tell you specifically, I've created under a nonprofit a national homelessness awareness campaign called Houses for Change, where kids decorate a house-shaped collection box that is own unique. They save money and they give it to any charity. We make very little money on this. Is it worthwhile advertising to our potential market, which is teachers who are teaching kids values, or are we wasting our money?
Yeah, I can't speak specifically to your cause because I would have to know the whole picture, right? I do think in general that Facebook is almost making it obligatory to pay if you really want to get your message out there to a wider audience. You're lucky if it goes viral, or not viral, I'm not even gonna say viral because that's really hard. You're lucky if it gets a lot of people, or you're doing it really well, you know? But if you have a big campaign or a big moment, or you're launching something new, I think it's important to think about a paid strategy, specifically if you already know on Facebook what works well with your community. You have to test Facebook and say, okay, this type of post is really working and is getting more views than this view. Then that's the kind of post you want to spend money on.
Thank
Okay.
you very much.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you comment briefly on quantity of posts versus quality of posts? At what point do people start tuning you out, like emails?
Thanks. I think it depends on your organization and your community, but I do think you need to post at least once a day. Try different times and experiment and see what it works for you. This is all a big experiment, right? Every group is different. Maybe spend a month posting twice a day every day, see how it gets you. And then spend the next month posting once a day, different times, see where that gets you. And then decide from there about what's really working for you. That's why Facebook has a really good Facebook analytics, which the woman over here was just talking about. So experiment and see what's right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for all those great questions. I appreciate that. So we talked about listening and the importance of listening. Now we're going to talk about sharing and content ideas. Because if I had $1 for everybody that told me that they didn't want to be on Twitter because they didn't want to tweet about their lunch, I would be a very rich woman. But I don't. And so tweeting about your food is not necessarily what you want to be doing if you're a nonprofit leader. There are lots of other really great ways to get your message out and to get people on board. Content ideas, access behind the scenes. I want to introduce you to Thomas Campbell. He's the head of the Met Museum in New York. By the way, Instagram is his platform of choice. He's not on Facebook or Twitter, so he's very targeted about that. But this new statue was coming over from Berlin, and he didn't just decide that he wanted to have it all nice and take a really pretty picture after it's all done, and isn't this beautiful? No. He took his people behind the scenes into the installation of it to teach them a little bit about this statue and what it means. And again, people loved it. So think about your nonprofit and what you can do. I mean, think again to those Haiti donations. Think about how visually you can tell the story of people donating in Miami, whether it's goods or money, transporting that to Haiti, and then the people it's affecting. Okay? That's a multi-process story. But think about how you can tell that, whether it's on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. Going behind the scenes is something that people love. Thought leadership, too, is a goal of a lot of nonprofits. How do you sort of stake out the territory and make a name for yourself in it? This is Darren Walker. He's one of my favorite people on Twitter, maybe in the world, too. Really like this guy. He's head of the Ford Foundation. And some of you might know that in the past year, Ford really changed the strategy completely, so that all the money that Ford gives away throughout the year is completely dedicated to inequality. So Ford didn't decide to sort of whisper, we're doing inequality now. No, they launched a huge communications campaign. It included blog posts, op-eds, media outreach, everything. The whole kitchen sink was in there. They did a really good video series with a hashtag inequality is, and had thought leaders around the country and the globe contribute to it. But one of the reasons why it really worked is because of this guy, Darren. Darren is a fantastic spokesperson, and he's great on Twitter, and whenever he is tweeting, he is completely on mission and talking about inequality. So if you want to see how this is done online, follow him and take some pointers from him. Okay? Inspiring people is another thing to do. If that's part of your mission, to inspire people, whether it's kindness or something else, inspiring people online is a good way to do it. This is Sean Dove. He's head of the Campaign for Black Male Achievement. And I swear, every morning, Sean posts something completely inspirational. And this it happens to be religious, and I'm not even a particularly religious person, and I get so motivated by it to go out there the next day and do the best I can for what I do in my job. But if being inspirational is part of your mission, think about how you can be inspirational to people online. Okay? Now we've talked about listening, sharing. We're going to get to engaging now. Think back to what your goals are on social media and who you might want to engage with. If you want to engage with journalists or funders, any type of people out there. Be generous. Make sure you follow them. Make sure you tag them. Make sure you share their information and tag them. Ask them questions. Make sure they know about you. You want engaging on social media is the gold standard. So don't forget about it. Make it your priority to find ways to engage with the people that you need to. Okay? And this is where I was going to talk a little bit about not leaving your branded page hanging out there. Branded pages that have employees that are commenting on them and sharing the information, so not just sharing, but commenting on them, have a higher rate of reach overall. I'm talking about Facebook pages now. So if your employees are commenting on your page, it's going to get a higher reach. So you want to encourage that. Don't leave your branded pages out there hanging while you're trying to promote your own profiles. And then if I say anything to you today that you remember, please remember this. Authenticity online is one of the most important things. If people can smell somebody who's fake a mile away, it's even worse online. You have to be yourself. So when you're on social media, don't use your CEO voice or the voice that you use when you talk to your funders or the voice you use when you're at a presentation, whatever that voice is. Talk like you're talking to your neighbors. Talk like you're talking to your kids, whatever it is. Be yourself, okay? That's the only way you're going to get followers and people to care about what you're saying. And then I want to tell you a little bit about some impact stories. This is Scott Harrison. He founded Charity Water, which you probably know is a charity that brings water to villages that don't have them, villages without water. If you want to follow a nonprofit account to really both inspire you and to see how nonprofits can really be awesome on social media, follow Charity Water, and then follow Scott Harrison. But Scott Harrison, on his 40th birthday, decided that he wanted to raise some money to get some water into villages. So what did he do? He put out this campaign on Twitter saying, this is my 40th birthday, let's help raise some money for villages. Do you know how much he raised? $400,000. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. And he didn't do it because he showed up on Twitter one day and said, I want to raise some money. No, he built relationships over time. He got people to care about him and his message over time. He engaged with them over time. And so when he turned 40, he was able to do this, right? Carolyn Miles, the same thing. She's the president and CEO of Save the Children. Spends every day out there taking people behind the scenes into Save the Children's work, talking about children's issues. She puts a little personal stuff in there too, so that when Hurricane Matthew came along, she was able to say, look, we've been in Haiti for 30 years. Why don't you think about donating to us to help the people of Haiti? That's the kind of impact you can have if you are building up your brand. Now, most of the stuff that I've been talking about has to do with staff, right? Some volunteers, but I want to talk specifically about recruiting board members because I think it's important also, and there are probably some board members out there in the room. So I realize that today there is still a very big divide on boards between people who have no interest in social media and people who use it fairly regularly. If you have a board that is not interested in social media, that is not using social media but might have some interest, you might want to think of bringing in a trainer who can help train them a little bit before you get started. But if you have people who are interested in, make it part of your onboarding. I mean, you're already doing onboarding with them about other topics that are relevant to your nonprofit. Make sure that your communications plan is a part of that. It's integral to what you do. Communications these days isn't an aside to the work. It is the work. So you need to bring them in on that. Tell them about your communications. Tell them about those big moments where you're going to need them to get the word out. And then when the moment comes, provide them with links that they can share, images, and even draft copy. They'll change it, and they should change it, but at least they have a start. At least they have a start to work with. So provide them with the information that makes it super easy to share. And then again, like I talked about before, put a little motivation in there. A little reward goes a long way, let me tell you. So try to provide a little incentive, whether it's social media person, board member of the quarter, recognize them at a meeting, and see how that works for you, okay? Now we're getting to the tools and tricks time. and I wanted to see if people would share some of the apps that they use on social media. And I'm taking my own medicine here. I have some incentives for you. So I have this lovely paperweight that is an @ symbol. You will be the social media king or queen of your office. And I have one for the first 4 people who will share what apps they like to use on social media that make their lives easier. It could be a photo app. Unfortunately, I have to go to the microphones. Run to the microphones. How many of these do I have? Oh, I have 5. How about that? Okay, let's start over here. My friend from dinner last night?
Yes, I use
Hi.
Canva to create graphics. It's free. It's a lot easier than Photoshop. And you can create standard size images for any social media channel. Canva, C-A-N-V-A.
You're my hero. That's my next slide. Perfect. I'll show you more about it, but it's my favorite thing ever. So thank you. Come up and receive it. Yeah, if you want to. What do you, I'm sorry, I'd love to hear what you use.
Hi. I like using the Layout app on my phone, and it lets me put multiple pictures into one for Instagram.
What's it called?
Layout.
Layout. Perfect. Yeah, that's a great one. I think those collage apps are great, particularly if you're not a great photographer. Like, I'm not a great photographer. Here, would you want to hand this one out? I'm not a great photographer either, but somehow if you put, oh, maybe you are a good photographer. I don't want to say that. I am not a good photographer. And if you're not a good photographer, you can easily put your photos into a collage, and somehow it just looks so much better. Okay.
I don't know if it's pronounced Waze or Waze, but I am constantly traveling in the counties, and it helps with traffic control, and it does help with any accidents. So it's wonderful for those who are going to multiple meetings.
Okay, great, thanks. I used Waze to get here. Go ahead.
I actually use 2.
Okay.
And the Flipagram is one that I use to tell the story with my pictures. And it allows you to put music to it. And the other one is Splice. Splice.
What does Splice do?
Yes. It allows you to, once you videotape, like if I was videotaping you, I can critique that video to the main points and post that instead of the whole time frame.
So it's easy, you edit it down?
You edit it down. You personally edit your own videos.
Okay, great. See, I'm learning things here today. Thank you. Wait, one more thing, sorry. How did you use that? Give me an example of how you use Splice.
So I do a lot of public speaking, and I always have someone in the audience taking a video of my event. And what we end up doing is some of the platforms that you have don't allow you to put the whole thing there. So and sometimes it'll critique it and miss the big point. So it lets you move the graphic, move the time frame and stop it where you need to actually get the point across in the message that you want showed.
Okay. Great, thank you. The next one? And then, sorry, this is my last incentive. I'm so sorry. Don't sit down. Go ahead.
I like to use Flickr because there's a lot of people that I know that don't do social media at all. So Flickr is a great way. You could just copy a link and just email it to them, send it to them, and they can look at photos from your events, personal, everything. So it's public access.
Yeah, Flickr is a photo sharing app. It's fantastic. For me, it's the best way to store my photos personally and professionally. That's great. Tell us.
Hi, I use a thing called Cute Cut, and I make a bunch of videos, and they look professionally edited, even though it's just an app on my phone.
How do you spell that?
Cute Cut. It's all one word, and it's free.
Cute, C-U-T-E?
Yeah, Cute Cut.
Cute Cut. Okay, great. You know what would be wonderful? I don't have all of these in my document. If you guys are on Twitter and you want to tweet out your favorite apps with the hashtag, it's not up there, but it's, I forgot what it is. What's the hashtag? ODFWIB. That would be great. Yes.
And before Facebook Live existed, we started using Periscope because she does a lot of public speaking, and that's what we rely on whenever she does speaking events.
Wonderful. Periscope is like Facebook Live, but on Twitter, and it's a wonderful thing to use. Thank you. Yes.
Hi, I like using Sprout. It's very similar to Hootsuite.
It lets you pre-plan all your posts, but it also allows you to look over everybody that has been posting similar things, mentions, and across the board, a ton of things that you could possibly see within your engagements on your posts.
Great, thanks. Yeah.
Hi, I like to use, I'm from Women's Foundation. I like to use Enhance. It hooks directly into Hootsuite, and it allows you to edit your photos to the different formats, because depending on the format, like Facebook is sideways, different ones, and it hooks directly into Hootsuite.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a very important point. Pictures look differently on different platforms. Facebook has a different side from Twitter and Instagram. Instagram's square. So a lot of these platforms can help you do that. Yes.
I use Smilebox to send thank you cards, and you're able to add music with pictures. So the pictures that you take at the event, it kind of gives a personal message, and it's called Smilebox. You can do a full version on your computer, and you can also do it on your phone. And it's spelled just like how it sounds, Smilebox together.
Have you used those for your nonprofit?
Yes.
After events or how?
After events, to say thank you for coming out. And people like to see themselves in pictures and know that they were photographed and a part of the history of the event. So it does help me to do that.
Great. So it's it's a very personalized thank you. This is really important for donors, as we all know. I don't think that's a reveal to anybody. Donor interaction is important. Okay, so I'm just going to go through some of the tools, and some of which I've already talked about or have been talked about. This is Canva, C-A-M-V-A. I am the world's worst graphic designer. If you think you are, that is not possible. I cannot design if my life depended on it. Canva makes it so incredibly easy. I made this slide in 5 seconds. If I had spent 10 seconds, it probably would have been twice as good. But I wanted to show you what can be done in 5 seconds. You can make a PowerPoint slide. You can make a digital flyer size for Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, any of those things. You can add your own images. You can use their stock images and pay $1 to get even better ones. So remember that, check it out. There's an app for your phone, so you can do it on the fly, or you can use it online. Canva. I sound like a commercial. I do not get paid by them. They're great. Okay, we already covered this, but I just want to say it again. Facebook Live, Periscope, experiment with it, be creative, try and think of new ways that you can use it that are beyond sort of the ordinary, okay? I talked earlier about separating your personal and your work life on social media. I wanted to give you a tip on how to do this. I think this is particularly hairy on Facebook, right? Because on Facebook, a lot of people use it for personal stuff, so you're going along in your life and you're posting about your weekend, your vacation, your grandkids, whatever it is. And then all of a sudden, you go to a conference like this or a networker, and some guy named Joe wants to be your friend. And you think, I don't want to upset him, but I also don't want him to see my vacation pictures. So this is really easy something to set up. It's the Facebook followers button. This is my friend, Frenchie Robles. She is a New York Times correspondent based in Miami. She certainly doesn't want people seeing her personal stuff. So she has a followers button. You can Google it to see how to do it, but this is how it works. Anybody who friends you, if you have one of these, automatically becomes a follower. So you can choose whether they're your friend. And then when you post, you can decide whether your posts go to your friends or to your friends and your followers. So these followers can get your work stuff, can get stuff that you don't mind sharing with everybody. And your friends still stay your friends and get your more personal stuff. So that's a pro tip with the Facebook followers button. Oh yeah, so this is a video that's not videoing. Imagine this woman dancing, okay? Infinitely. It's always fun to put a little emotion into your social media. We all like GIFs, right? GIFs are a ton of fun. This is supposed to be a GIF. GIF Maker is a really easy GIF making app. But I like to use Boomerang on Instagram. It makes a 1-second video that loops. A video and is an easy way to make a GIF. This is really pretty, actually. I'm not going to lament it anymore, though. She's really fun. You can do it if you're having an event and a performance, so somebody can dance forever and ever on your social media feed. Or you can use it to get something that has no motion in it and add motion to it. I mean, who's been on a webinar and tried to promote that webinar on social media? It's kind of hard. There are people talking at their computer screens. It's not that great, right? But I mean, one thing that we did was we had people stare into the camera and wave into it in a boomerang. You know, it got a lot of likes. Drove people to the webinar. So think about different ways you can try and use motion to spice up that feed. Boomerang. Infographics. Once in a while, we run into some really good data that we want to share with our folks. So infogram is a really easy way to do that. You can make easy bar charts and graphs and all that kind of stuff that you can share on social media, especially if you don't have a graphic design team, which a lot of small nonprofits don't. This is an easy way to create those, infogram. And then if you are having that problem of staring at that blank screen, we all have that problem. I used to be a writer. It was really hard. But our good friends at M&R had this social media content generator. And if you go there and you press the button, it'll give you an idea of what kind of thing to post. And if you press it again, it'll give you another idea. And it has sort of infinite ideas. So if you're having a hard time staring at that screen, just click through those and it'll tell you what to post. It's really kind of fun. I think they started it as a joke, but I find it very fun and funny. Maybe it's a nerd thing. So we've gotten to the question portions again. I told you I would share a resources link. These are the resources that I've talked about. bit.ly/ that actually says MLC Talk. MLC, that's my company, MLC Talk, if you want to download the resources. Oh, I'm at Marika Lynch. MARIKALYNCH. And I'll be tweeting out this link too, with the hashtag in a second. Well, who's excited to try this? Yeah? Great, thank you. That was very sweet. So I want to give you some homework, okay? Just a little bit of homework to get you started for next week when you get back to your computer and you know that this is on your priority list. These are the 3 things you're going to do next week. You're going to set your goals. You're going to really think about why you're on social media so that you know what you want to accomplish. I want you to set some time to do this. Mark your calendar, 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes at night, to do what you need to do, whether that's looking at your feed or thinking of things to post. Okay? And lastly, think about what you need to do to listen, share, and engage. Because I think we all need to remember what Marlon Hill said at the beginning. If you don't write your own story, somebody else will. Thank you.